Turn off my phone.
Welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled board meeting of the South Tahoe PUD. Could you all please rise and join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks for coming everyone. At this time, do we have any comments from the audience on non-agenda items? Seeing none. We do have a correction to the agenda. Gary, could you discuss that, please?
Yes. A couple days ago, the district received a claim, and we thought it would be best if, given that there's 3 weeks to your next board meeting, to discuss that. At least give you a heads up as to what the claim's about, so you aren't surprised somewhere on the street before the next board meeting. So we do need a 4/5 vote of the board to add this thing to the agenda, since it came up after the agenda was published.
Okay. Do we have to name this thing that we're adding, or just say we're adding a closed session item?
We can add the name. It's, how do you pronounce her name? Remember?
So Gary, why don't you give us how you would word this this motion, and then we'll get a so moved after that.
We don't have the name. Why don't we just say potential, no, second potential litigation?
But we need to know the name in case one of us might have a conflict or something.
It's Zeptus, I believe. We'd asked the board to add an anticipated litigation by Mr. and Mrs. Zeptus based on their claim they filed the district earlier this week.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Yeah, 4/5.
We need all of us.
And under discussion, I just wanted to make sure, because my mechanic who got hurt, who got burned, his last name is close to that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have a conflict.
This is an older couple. They don't live in town.
Okay.
You won't be taking any action today.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure.
Dwayne, you've got to do that up there. Okay, that passes by the required 4 votes. So, do we have any other corrections to either the agenda or the consent calendar? I don't see everyone jumping forward, so how about a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Okay, once again, we get a 4-0 vote. Mr. Hughes.
Just fogged up my glasses with my feet. We're very professional here. Year 5. Boy, it's hard to believe we've actually gotten to this point with our Prop 218. But for your consideration is Resolution 3084-18, which confirms the water and sewer service charge rates for fiscal year 18-19. And as I said, this is the 5th and final year of the current 5-year Prop 218 and 5-year rate schedule, which was adopted by the board in 2014 by Ordinance 557-14. The proposed budget has been developed with a 5% increase to water service charge rates and a 6% increase to the sewer service charge rates. Combined, the total impact on a typical customer is about $5 a month for those two. These rates are 100% for the infrastructure projects that are part of the district's capital improvement plan. And so that being said, the staff recommendation is to approve resolution number 3084-18.
Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss on this? We've
Well,
been through it all in the workshops a bunch of
Yeah,
times.
I just like to make a little statement that I know what you know. I know you know what I'm going to say. I cannot support this bill. I think it's irresponsible, reckless. We need to be moving ahead. This chart that that we got on the water budget, it's pushing everything out to 10 years. The way I do a few calculations, I think we got about $75 million of deferred maintenance, and I just think that's wrong. This was just a mistake. There's so many other things that are going to be affected for us in the long term. The fact that this keeps getting pushed out 10 years every year, I don't know whose idea that was. If somebody wants to explain that, but every year for the last 5 years, this point where we jack it up, it's 10 years out. I had some other thoughts, but I don't have my. Anyway, I will not vote for any of the budget increase.
Okay.
Can anybody explain why we're doing this? We're not.
And have done and have had explained all of this every year for the last 5 years of this, and we're going to stay the course, and we're going to keep going the way we're going.
Just in terms of the construct on that diagram, what accentuates it or helps to accentuate it is staff. Since there is no process yet for the future rate increases, and we're at the end of the 5-year deal. The assumption made on for future rate increases to construct that was just 2%, which is the number. If you look backwards, we've kind of averaged those types of rate increases. So we just put 2% in on both the water and sewer. So if you think that and I think everybody kind of realizes at this point that if we're going to be keeping up with a lot of the identified capital improvements, I think the expectation is that future rate increases are going to be higher than 2%, which will mitigate that. But just because there's been no decision, we just did that historical assumption, and so it lessens the investment over the next 8-9 years in terms of what can be put into that chart. Because when we construct the budget, we use just the amount of revenues that are collected under that assumption to plan for how many capital projects we can get done. So that's why it accentuates that jump when you get off the 10-year plan, and then all the things that have been deferred and not be able to be afforded with the 2% rate increase is stuffed into the years 11 through 20. So
Engineering News Record index is going up at 3.5%, so we're losing ground every year.
We understand that, and that's.
And 10 years out, we're going to have to start increasing to get up to that big jump, more than 10% every year. And maybe the rest of the board isn't going to be around here, then maybe I'll have to stick around and help fix it.
I just had one procedural comment. Not to say what Jim's saying is right or wrong. From a procedural standpoint, given that these rates were adopted in under Prop 218 process,
yes.
The board does not have a choice of it going any higher at this time until you go through another rate study, and that would be the appropriate time to talk about what's the correct amount as far as increases on an annual basis.
But we can do another 218 anytime we want. We can do it right now if we wanted.
Yeah, you just have to comply with the 45-day notification period and all that.
We'd be a little late getting the budget out.
Yeah,
But
you couldn't raise rates for July 1st above the 6 and 5% that's in the budget here, because that's what was approved 5 years ago in the Prop 218 process.
And I don't think you could go that fast anyway, because you're going to have a new rate study prepared, which takes quite a while.
I'm just saying I don't agree with this. And the fact that we're not raising rates and we've reduced our connection fees, I don't know if anybody else has ever read this, but we'll lose about $2 million a year in income because of the not moving ahead with the plan that was a lot of study, a lot of thoughts went into this 10 years ago in 2008. And as far as I'm concerned, I have not seen one low-income project come through since the rates were reduced. And I'd recommend that at some point we get back on this schedule, and that if there is something that we want to do for low-income housing, we could have a committee or group, whatever, work on guidelines to do
We'll
this.
talk about that
Yeah,
under
once
reports.
again, we're off topic. Let's, anything else on this?
I have a lot of things to say, but I've said it before, so.
Yeah, we beat this horse so dead, it's pathetic, so I'd like to move on and vote.
Yeah, thank you. I move that we approve resolution number 3084-18 confirming water and sewer service charge rates for fiscal year 2018-2019.
I'll second that. It's hard enough for me to vote for that high of an increase in the first place.
And that passes 3-1. Paul, you're gonna run the next two on these
Sure.
also.
So now before you is resolution number 308518, adopting the fiscal year 2018-19 water enterprise fund budget. The second half of the requested board action doesn't need to be read any longer because that only was necessary if there was a change to the previous resolution, not adopting the rates at the 6% and 5% levels. So the water fund, fiscal year 18-19 budget is in the amount of $20,847,541, and includes the 5% service charge increase. 43% or $8,878,050 is for projects, $965,000 for debt service, $4,170,026 for O&M, and $6,834,465. Staff recommendation was to adopt resolution 3085-18, adopting the fiscal year 2018-19 water enterprise fund budget.
So moved.
Second.
Registering for some reason, Dwayne.
Had to hit OK.
And that passes 3-1. You're up again.
Okay. Before you is resolution 308618, adopting the fiscal year 2018-19 sewer enterprise fund budget. The sewer fund budget for next year is in the amount of $29,535,150, includes the 6% current rates. 32% or $9,321,700 is for capital projects. $3,122,000 for debt service, $6,237,410 for O&M, and $10,854,040 for salaries and benefits. And the staff recommendation is to adopt resolution number 3086-18, adopting fiscal year 2018-19 sewer enterprise fund budget.
So moved again.
Second.
That passes 3-1. Okay, I believe you're up, Mr. Stanley. Is that right? Oh no, Cliff's up. Sorry, Cliff.
What are you doing?
I got two things on the agenda for today. The first one is to authorize for the purchase of a 2019 F-450 box truck for our service trucks. This one, we've got one already that been approved and we've received. We've talked to the dealer company that we got it from. They agreed to hold the same price as the 2018 model. And so we'd like to piggyback on this offer. They were the lowest bid out of the three that we received.
So this is another one?
Yeah. And this is replacing two of our older 550 diesels that we have. And these are two 450 gas motors.
If I remember right, the older one is quite a few years old, right?
Yes, they're a two. This one will be a 99, and the other one was a 2000.
Because they hardly made it at all, did they?
I have a technical question. I don't want to micromanage, but I've heard, for the most part, through my life, that diesel motors last a lot longer. They usually, the truck wears out around them.
Correct.
How do these particular gas motors hold up in that?
Not well. Getting away from the smaller vehicles, the 1 ton or the 1.5 tons down, like the Fords and the Chevys with the diesels in them. One, they're so electronic now, they're very, very problematic and unreliable. DPF systems are high maintenance, and reporting with California is very time consuming.
This is the diesel ones now?
Diesel ones.
Okay.
We go to the gas, these trucks stay in town. Richard Solbrick's old Expedition has got well over 200,000 miles on it. And all we've ever had to do to that is just tune-ups and oil changes. So the motors have proven themselves. And for around town and even out on the road, they work very well.
Thank you.
And this is this
Thanks
one's
for letting
actually
me micromanage.
That's all right, Doreen. This one's actually budgeted for the July 1 fiscal year, but I just would like to get it ordered. We won't see it until probably August.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
No, I'll move approval of the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-450 box truck from Town Ford Sales in the amount of $58,518.75.
Second.
It's the 75 cents that had me handed.
That's for the gas cap.
Pretty cool that they're honoring that price for this year too.
I thought it was a good situation instead of going out to bid, and that way we got two identical trucks, and we don't have to stock a bunch of different things.
Might get some trouble on the next one though. It's all kind of ugly.
Okay, that passes.
You're talking to him, haven't you?
No, I came up with that all on my own.
4-0. So yeah, I've been waiting for this next one too. I want to hear some.
This one's going to be interesting, huh?
Sounds like it.
Okay,
Ready?
let's go. This is an unbudgeted item. What I'd like to do is, with the sale of our 3 Camels and our 1 Hydro, we got $90,000 for those. I believe after cost to the auction company, we're right around the $88,000 mark. I'd like to use some of that money to purchase one of these Kia EVs for the water conservation department. They're out in the public way more than our guys are, and in the public eye a lot more. She puts on her things at the Earth Day and the fire show and stuff like that. I just think it would be, in the public's eye, it would look good. I'm saying maybe not a Kia, but I went with the Kia just because it's got the most room.
How long is the cord? You
got to pull a generator with it. That's the only problem. No.
That's a great idea.
But anyway, it's a full electric vehicle. I got some mileage facts that we got from her over a couple years. Last year, the water people that were out in the neighborhood for 42 days put on 642 miles. And a Jeep Cherokee, they're not the best fuel efficient vehicle on the road. The year before, it was about 3,000 miles. So I think it would help with our fuel economy, and all that, and we have that little excess money that I'm prying out of Paul.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Paul, didn't you have that money?
We had that money?
Yeah, I know we have it because of the sale of the vehicles. Did you already account on spending that somewhere else?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
I beat him. Started early on this one.
Okay, well, Cliff, my question is, I'm looking at you've got a kind of a comparison table here with all these electric vehicles.
Yes.
Where's the comparison to a gas vehicle? And did you do a proposed life cycle vehicle on different vehicles? I get that you like the appearance of electric vehicle, but the bottom line matters too.
Couldn't we just Uber it?
It's, what was that one?
I thought that was funny. Thank you for responding.
I believe it was 32,500 for that. They got a smaller Chevy Bolt, which the reviews aren't all that swell on.
Again, it's an electric vehicle.
Yeah,
Did
and
you
the gas ones, I got the pages here. Pyrus is 25,000, so it's about $5,000 more.
Well, that's a hybrid.
Grab this to the next house.
I don't have the gas. Here's Nissan's about the same size, and it's about 21,000. They don't show the.
Well, it's okay that I don't have it, or you don't have it in front of you. I'm just curious. You did compare it to a
Gas?
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was competitive, less expensive, more expensive.
It's more expensive to buy outright, but pay off in the long run, especially with the amount of driving they'll be doing. I think it'll pay for itself.
You were
Also, the purpose of going after this grant, this state grant, was to offset the difference between the cost of the gas
right.
and electric.
Almost pays for the charging station.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great idea.
Well, I mean, I get it. I get that, but you're still not getting your fuel for free, right? Did you
No,
kilowatts or it still costs money.
Yeah,
too.
you're paying for the kilowatts, but a kilowatt hour compared to what gas prices are going is still much cheaper. I believe a kilowatt hour is up around 62 cents an hour or something like that for commercial. And if we use a 220 or a 220 volt charger, that brings the cost down because it uses less amps than the charger that's built into the car, which can be run by an extension
You
cord.
have any idea what the cost per mile is then for electricity?
I think I printed that out.
We're just working him over, aren't we?
Yes.
Bring it on. I'll either say yes or no if I know it.
Just working him over.
Part of this for my own information. I've never read the numbers on this, as to see how these compare. I think a lot of
Well,
times,
they've gotten a lot better. If you notice, like on that sheet that I gave you, it shows a 60-mile average range, and that was actually a 2015 bid. It's been updated for at the end of 2017, so they're still honoring that price. Now it's up to 111 miles. Combined miles, it was 124 highway, 80 city with 100, came out to 111 miles average for both.
battery range. We still don't know how many watts it takes to.
But it's a 30 kilowatt system.
Doesn't El Dorado County have a program for compensating? I think it was $1,000.
I believe they do.
Can we get in on that, or
I think they were looking into that one. This one they got here is an ARB program, and they'll pay back $2,500 towards it. But I do believe El Dorado County does have an electric vehicle program with that too. And I think Lynn was looking into that one also.
about $1,000, I think, was the figure.
So you plan to drive it down to the casinos and charge it for free?
It was $3,500 in here is from the state Lynn was chasing, not El Dorado County to be something in addition.
They're
Yeah.
just gonna hang a cord out Richard's window.
Yeah.
What's
I'm gonna put a generator behind it.
Yeah, if you pull a generator behind it, you don't never have
you
to
know
take it to a station.
what the battery life on this vehicle is supposed to be?
The battery life is guaranteed for 15 years.
And
They
don't even know how long. I have a Prius that, when I got it, it was 150,000 miles or 10 years, and it's still going.
We could pull up to stop signs and look down on other people. It's like, I'm helping the environment.
As
race
As long as it's not
Teslas.
lime green.
Yeah, I know.
No lime green souls.
No.
This is white, right?
Yeah, good.
Be any color you want.
Oh, we want white.
Not
right?
lime green.
Green?
Yeah, with the chipmunks or whatever.
Put Paul in there.
We just leave it at the corner and somebody charge it and bring it back.
But we'll get, an easily day or more out of it. Even with the this charger it comes with, it's a 3 kilowatt charger, and it can charge it up overnight. And we can see how that works at first.
Huh.
Do we have any idea how many hours it takes to charge up?
It takes 7 hours with the charger I have in here,
Uh-huh.
and about 30 hours with the 110. So,
Oh, okay. But didn't you say
So
something?
plan your,
You can only drive it once a
plan your
week.
schedule.
Didn't you say it was like 68 cents an hour?
kilowatt hours somewhere in there, yeah.
That's kind of new to me. I haven't looked into the numbers before.
I'm new into this too, and I'm learning as I go.
I still don't have a really good feel as to how that $33,500 compares to
Gas.
a similar size.
That would
gas
cost about 4.2 cents a mile. It takes 7 hours and 68 cents to charge, and you get 111 average miles out of it.
Like less than a tenth of what the IRS pays you to drive a gasoline car, huh? Like 55 cents a mile right now, the IRS rate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we approve the purchase of a 2019 Kia Soul electric vehicle through the state of California. Contract bid number 1-16-23-10E, and the estimated amount of $32,573, plus an additional amount of $4,500 for a stage 2 charging station.
Second.
Nervous on this one?
I think so.
Surprisingly, that passes 4-0. I think that probably at $32,000 the cost, if the gasoline was cheaper, it's probably within the ballpark, and this might be, I guess, kind of an experiment. In 10 years we may say that was really stupid.
Yeah, that's
but we may say that was the best thing since sliced bread. So I guess you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You can't put a cost on public perception.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of dual fuel vehicles, or at least one in the
value
past we
life.
tried, and we decided that.
That was an early version of a propane gas truck.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
Well, let's hope this works out better than that.
I hope so. They've come a long way. I'll keep you in tuned. Thank you.
And you'll let us know if you like it or not, right?
I wonder what the little horn will sound like. Are you going to press the little horn? The horn.
The horn?
Yeah, get something good, something. Oh, one of those little things.
Okay, it looks like John is filling in for Evo on our next one,
Going in for
right?
Evo.
That's
Good afternoon.
And for Evo's item, as a condition of our recycled water discharges to Alpine County, Lahontan, of course, requires some monitoring, analysis, and reporting on a quarterly basis and an annual basis. And our upcoming farming and irrigation operations are going to require actually trigger some additional reporting requirements. So we would like Dominichelli and Associates to complete this work for us. And so his requested board action is to accept the cost proposal from Dominichelli and Associates for engineering services needed to satisfy the monitoring and reporting requirements for the discharge of recycled wastewater onto the Diamond Valley Ranch in an amount not to exceed $56,186. Do you have any?
What's our Diamond Valley guy say?
I mean, this is one of those ones that we have to do it. We have to keep. Yeah, we're required to. So I'm kind of surprised this didn't end up on consent, actually.
Oh, well, we thought you might be interested in knowing it is. And understand this is for where the center pivot rigs are, because we actually used recycled water through the center pivot rigs on those fields that we're going to be planting in alfalfa. This isn't on other portions of the ranch where we're running cattle. Then we approved, the rancher's contract. This is specifically where the recycled water is going, and so that's why we have to report.
Incredible how much money. Okay.
And Dominichelli's, of course, they've been involved in this project for a long time. They've also been doing this type of work in Los Angeles County, so we believe they're kind of uniquely qualified to do this work for us at this time.
Yeah, they were the design engineers for the center pivot rig project.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Where is it?
I'm going to read that requested board action again.
Do it.
I hope not.
I'll move that we accept the cost proposal from Dominichelli and Associates for engineering services needed to satisfy the monitoring and reporting requirements for the discharge of recycled wastewater on the Diamond Valley Ranch in an amount not to exceed $56,186.
I'll second that. Great. Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And that passes 4-0. Payment of claims.
I move that we approve payment of claims in the amount of $1,533,698.75.
Second.
There's that 75 cents again.
There it is.
That'll break it over time.
Once again, 4-0. Standing and ad hoc committee reports. Richard, do you know where we are with the city? Is this going to happen?
I have it on my list of things I mentioned. The next scheduled meeting, the May 11th meeting was canceled because several of Dwayne and Wendy weren't available. Anyway, so that got canceled. But the next one's scheduled for June 8th. I believe it's at the district. Don't quote me on that, but wherever it was originally scheduled, we didn't change it because of missed meetings. But on June 8th, right now, Scott Ferguson has told me that he, Patty Koimogen, and Doug Smith are planning on attending that meeting to discuss the Southwide PCE contamination, the cleanup procedures, and what's going on there. Because remember, we had requested that they come and talk to us. So right now, my understanding is that they're planning on being there.
In here or be there?
Probably here.
I think it's here.
We'll have Melanie send us an email and
yeah.
update us as to make sure.
Because I think the May 11th meeting was supposed to be at the city, so they missed it. So then.
Yeah. And they missed the one that was here before that.
Oh,
so.
only one person showed. Oh, that's right. We showed up and they didn't. That's right.
Right. So.
Little distractions over there, but.
Considered a committee meeting, or can any other board members?
That's an ad hoc committee meeting, so.
We'd have to notice it.
We'd have, if other board members wanted to show up, we'd have to publicize it because we're going to be talking about district business.
Or one
As a-
of
as a
us,
potential
one of
meeting.
us stay home and Jim go if he's got a burning issue, if it's one that fits.
No.
So once you have two already participating on the subject, you can't step back and let a third one come in.
I see, yeah, you're right.
It could
I
be
see
real
why.
interesting with Lon. That's my interest.
Well, like I say, right now it's, Scott Ferguson said they were coming. I'll confirm that, probably next week. I'll call and remind them, okay, you said, because they said, well, May 11th or June 8th. I said, no, May 11th isn't going to work, so June 8th. And so we'll make sure that they haven't forgotten.
Has a public meeting been set up yet?
No, we were waiting to get the well data information. We're waiting some of the testing results. We've gotten some of them. Evo's busy calculating, permeability rates and things like that. And as soon as we knew we had that nailed down, we were going to set a meeting, the next public meeting. The last time we told them that we expected it to be like in June sometime. We still might be able to make that. The recommendation I've received from a couple people is to try to go back to see if we can do it at Tahoe Valley Elementary School. We had the last one set up there, but they had a change of schedules. There was a mix-up, and so the meeting, the night that we had scheduled for the meeting, they couldn't accommodate us. So the city was accommodating us over at the council chambers on a last-minute notice. But I think that people recommend us go back to Tahoe Valley because it's walking distance from a lot of the people who are affected. So we kind of expect to go back to Tahoe Valley Elementary School. I think they're happy to accommodate us. They just couldn't the night we had it scheduled for.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, so. Okay, then want to talk more about that?
Yeah, let's just continue to see if we have any other standing or ad hoc committee reports.
Yeah.
The only other thing would be you should have got a copy of the minutes of the committee, operations committee that we had on Monday.
It's emailed out to us every time it's published.
If anybody's got questions about any issues.
And then it's sort of I think it's an ad hoc committee on the workforce housing issue. I'm on the policy subgroup committee, and we've got a meeting scheduled for May 23rd at 10 o'clock in the morning at the Tahoe Mountain Laboratory. If you want to, I know you were at the last meeting, Gloria, if you want to attend.
I plan on being there. I've been reading some of the finance committee stuff that I missed one of the meetings. My mother passed away, and they're it really seems to come back to PRPA. There are so many fees that bunch up inside these projects that need to be let go of. I mean, TRPA kind of lives off fines and fees and permits, but oh my gosh, that if you just take their stuff and ours, it's pretty rough. And in answer to Jim's deal, the guy from H&H Contracting, never met him before, came up to me and said, thank you to the district for making the sewer connection price reasonable, because now he has clients who can build regular houses. So anyway, but what I saw briefly last night, I was reading it last night, it seemed like the cost of each of these projects puts a 2-bedroom, 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, can't remember if it has a garage, at, boy, it makes it so that the monthly rent was, I think, $1,200 a month. Still too high.
It was the information, I haven't read it thoroughly, but it mentioned that there were actually 3 specific projects, low-income type projects that are being actually considered that we can kind of focus on in terms of regulations and zoning and things like that. So, because you mentioned Jim, you hadn't seen any low-income housing. Evidently, they've got 3 potential projects identified that the group can look at to see what it is we can do to, incentivize one of these projects being able to move forward.
Right.
I mean, $1,600 a month rent still doesn't seem like it's going to work.
It's not working. We've got to.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that,
Yeah.
if that's what it is, but
Yeah.
for somebody that's building a McMansion out there, you know, and I mean, you can't build a house in this community for less than $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 anymore. And the only one that's making out any money is the contractors or the speculators.
Yeah.
So that's.
But we will probably be coming
Okay.
back. I can
Yeah.
see us adjusting to making our sewer connection fees
Yeah,
more
just-
in line for affordable projects versus just in a McMansion.
Yeah.
But it's up to the city to stop their allowing people to accept around their zoning.
Well, the other people who have excess sewer units in town are the city, the Conservancy, the Forest Service. You know, there's organizations that, you know, if they're kind of involved in these discussions, they're the ones who could step up and contribute sewer units that they have now in excess capacity sitting on some property someplace in town. And if we had decided, and we've talked, we haven't done the writing in terms of changing the administrative code, but we can do that, you know, fairly quickly at any meeting. This, you know, that comes to pass, and then we could actually lower some of those upfront costs further. Again, if some of the agencies are willing to step up and, you know, I mean, if we allow transfers, they may think that that's a valued commodity. Back in the day, there was almost a black market of sewer units.
Well, we had a year
so-
where I was very proud of this. Because we had a year where there was going to be no building, and the city had units that could be built on. The units that we had available weren't buildable in that way, and we made a trade. And then they did try to sell them and jack up the price on the market. That's their business. Shame on them. But we got a building season out of it.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is get those units that are sitting out there, I've said it before, into the main street and paying us on a quarterly basis. The more the better.
I mean, right now they're sitting there, and you know, people they have them reserved, but we're not collecting any revenue on them.
Right. So we've tipped it in the right direction. It's up to some others to step up. So that's that. But I intend to stay right on it. And the meetings are large, but they broke off into smaller groups, which should help.
Yes, this is just a smaller policy subgroup. That's the May 23rd meeting at 10 o'clock. So I was planning on going, so anyway, the invite's there. So that's,
I think that does the standing ad hoc committee reports. Any board member reports?
Just real quickly, just last night I was at the county supervisor debate, and somebody brought up on the side that there's going to be a bus system that I think the League to Save Lake Tahoe is working on with the grant, that it would only run from Ski Run up into Nevada and back. I'm not sure why it wouldn't go the rest of the town, but it's these pink buses or something like that. Kind of like the green bicycle thing. Be like 8 or 9 passenger vans. I don't know, that might help our employees who need to get to work that way, but doesn't really fit to us. And I read about a project over in Tahoe City, the trout that are in the center there. I guess TTD has the power to move statues and things like that, and the artist is very upset that they're moving his statue without consulting with them, and they're actually tearing it down, I think, as we speak, into pieces, and they're going to store it until they get a resolution. But the artist is worried that he says that they didn't live up to, TTD didn't live up to their promise of giving him the opportunity. And that's what struck me is, okay, you know, they promise things and then all of a sudden something changes, and Carl Hastings right in the middle of it. That's all I know.
well, in terms of the schedule, you know, we were told that the final EIR was going to come out in May, and it's, to my knowledge, it still hasn't come out. It's not on their website. Now I'm hearing from a couple of sources it's probably going to be next month in June. So we're watching for it. Yeah. You know, we've got a couple of staff people have, you know, involved, who analyzed and priced out some of the impacts to our water and sewer system, we'll be watching to see what kind of answer they provide to our comments.
Yeah, I made my point clear. I don't want to get right up next to the deadline and then they go, no, changed our minds.
Well, I guess it's going to TRP board for approval? Oh, for comments? Okay. Not to the APC first or anything? Oh.
And it really was what I talked to Joan Marchetta and she said, well, we wanted to finish our transportation plan and we had the loop road needed to be finished. And I pointed out to her that if you go online and see what they said was the loop road is finished. This is just an addition and basically a bypass. So everybody knows how I feel about that. Okay.
Jim, you had a...
Yeah. I attended the Aqua Conference last week, Monday through Friday. There were about 1,600 people, all the important water people in the state of California. There's a lot of federal and state representatives, a lot of manufacturers of water equipment. There were 85 exhibits in the exhibit hall, so it had a little of everything. The first day, I attended the JPIA meeting. We were voted in unanimously to be in their not liability, but workman's, no, property, yeah, I keep getting them mixed up, into the property portion of that, and Nancy's going to be looking into the other two programs that they have, and you're going down the next few weeks to, aren't you? Yeah. So we've been in the benefits for a while, and now we're in the workman's comp, and I think everybody's real impressed with what they've been doing. There's about 187 members of the JPIA are in the workman's comp program. That's out of about, I think, 225 members, and Aqua, and all of those are Aqua people, and there's about 440, I think, members of Aqua. So it's interesting. They're moving ahead on some programs. They've got some safety programs and other things that they think have helped to lower their rates and their little of everything. So those are good. And they're moving ahead on a board training program to help train board members, which will be interesting. I have a copy, if anybody's interested, an extra copy of the manual that was sent around that everybody got. So if anybody's interested in looking at that, or pass it down. The next couple of days were, Tuesday was the committee meetings. Shannon was there, Eva was there for the groundwater, and we were able to compare notes. We didn't all go to the same meetings because some of them are at the same time. But I attended the groundwater committee, the water management committee, and the water quality committee, and been keeping up to date on that. Wednesday and Thursday is the actual meeting of Aqua with all of the different sessions and the speakers at the luncheon and so forth. And, I attended of the 80. It's kind of hard to get to very many because they're all at the same time, or a bunch at the same time. I attended one that was a NASA airborne snow observation, which is going to be doing the Tahoe Basin area here this summer. They use LIDAR, they measure the ground, and then they'll come back in the winter several times and measure the depth of the snow on that ground base that they've got. And it's going to give them a lot better idea of how much water is up in the mountains which will help in predicting runoff and those types of things. Right now, they have to rely on what are called snow pillows, and they've got about 120 of those all through the Sierras. But with this, they say it's the equivalent of having a measuring device on every square meter in the Sierras, or the area that they're covering. So that was interesting. There were other sessions on the California Water Plan. Interesting session, a couple of them on problems that had to do with water companies in the areas that were damaged by fires and floods. The Montecito flood, landslide, and the fire down there, and the fires up in the Santa Rosa area. And we'd had a question about why they lost a lot of their water system. And it turns out that the fire actually melted some of the pipelines.
Yeah.
Most of their pipelines are deep enough. They were over 5 feet deep. It's where they had to come up to water meters and those types of things. So, but they were having benzene in their water system from the pipelines, and some of those neighborhoods are going to have to be completely redone. That's going to be really expensive. There was a session on federal affairs and a few others that I attended. There was a lot of discussion about the aqua goals for the next few years. If anybody's interested, I've got a bunch of things in the program. The motto for the program is building for the future, which is what we should be doing, not stealing from the future. But anyway, that's it. Anybody's got questions? We've got a lot of literature here.
Okay, thanks. Any other board member reports? It looks like that on the 9th there was a El Dorado County Water Agency meeting.
Yes, Kelly and I attended, and for us the key thing is we're going to be having to do some more work on our. We submitted 8 or 9 projects for their cost-sharing program for the water purveyors. Well, Ken Payne is now the permanent general manager for the next 5 years. He's got a 5-year contract, and he wants to make some changes to that program because and rightly so. What he's seeing is that a lot of the projects are basically multi-year projects, coming year after year, and the purveyors are having to scramble to try to define each project from year to year. So he's changing that, and for us, the groundwater issues, and then any hydropower units, which also include our PRV type projects. He wants to move them into the higher priority category and actually look at them as a responsibility of the water agency, particularly with the groundwater, since the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, they're a partner with us to do, if you remember, that whole rigmarole we went through to have them cover the part of the groundwater basin that's outside our service area. So that's the good news. The bad news is I'm not sure how much, until all that shakes out, whether we're going to get as much money as we thought with the 9 projects we submitted, but it's going to take us, we're waiting for some specific feedback from them in terms of how we want to move forward, or what additional information they are going to look for us to provide. So there's some changes coming there. Questions? Okay. So we can move to public outreach. I have a few quick items. Last Saturday I attended a meeting of the American Association of University Women. I'd been invited there after I went to the Glenwood Garden Club meeting almost a year ago. So it was a meeting about 15 women, college graduates, and we had a very lively, about an hour and a half discussion on the district and its future, and I emphasized the Prop 218 process that was coming and the need for the public to get involved and to help us set our priorities and set our, I talked specifically about some of the things that we were facing, the improvement of the water system, the replacement of undersized water lines, and how much it was going to cost, and really emphasized the fact that from the 1980s, when we converted the plant and built Harvey Place Reservoir, we got 87.5% grant funding to do that. That was $30 million worth of work in 1986 and 87. And now we're facing with, similar sized projects, tens of millions of dollars, and the funding ratios have basically reversed. Now it's about 12.5% grant money, because we've got an active grant program, and 87.5% local money. So it's like, it's really going to impact. It really impacts the local ratepayers a lot more than the old projects did. So, see if we can basically scare up some real interest and some people who are willing to spend some time thinking about the issues. And that was what was impressed me, was their willingness to engage, and they were very happy to spend that much time. Like, they didn't act like they're having to rush out the door, or what the 20 minutes, that's all you get, kind of a thing. So it was a very, very enjoyable Saturday morning. Then I also attended Wendy David's conversation on the Sierra Boulevard project on Wednesday. Again, had about 12 to 15 people who just wanted to come and find out about the project. The good news I found out was that there had been some conversation or some buzz around town about how the project was delayed and that the city was going to lose some of their funding. Well, I guess they got the funding deadlines extended, because what they had to do is they had a massive, I call it massive, it was over 50 6-foot deep auger holes, hand augered, with the material sifted at 1 foot intervals in the auger depth, looking for cultural resources up and down Sierra Boulevard.
I think I saw him working on that. I saw him out there with a sieve, and they're out there going through it.
Yeah, so
It was like by hand.
There actually are some Indian grinding rocks not too far from.
Yeah, well, anyway, that's what would delayed the project. So really, the schedule is rolled back. So now what they're anticipating is getting authorization to bid maybe about mid-July, not opening bids, and it's federal money involved. It's a 30-day required bid period. Mid-August, bid opening. They're thinking that maybe some of the underground work might be able to get started in September, but then it's going to basically, the schedule is going to be to give the project all next year to finish. Or actually the whole construction season to finish all the underground work and then to rebuild the road section.
There's some real problems between the church and the neighbors there once they realized, for some reason, they wanted to have, and they still might, have 4 different bike and walking and hiking trails.
There's trails on both sides of the road.
That church has probably about 600 members.
So there's...
And that try to park, and then the neighborhood itself, a lot of the neighbors are just parking on dirt in there, and they're just gonna be out of luck.
Well, according to...
They need to park at angles. It's the answer. I don't know if they'll do it.
No, they're still talking about parallel parking. They're saying on Sierra Boulevard from Palmyra to Fountain, there's going to be 52 parking spaces on Sierra Boulevard. And basically, the attitude for the city was that, if that ain't enough, it's your problem, to Sierra Community Church. That's basically the message was delivered at the meeting.
Yeah, I think Sierra Community Church's answer is, well, probably 400 of our people vote.
Yeah, well, that was basically the response.
But it made no sense to put so many. Even I talked to the bike trail people, Ty Pilastri, and he was one of the major ones for a long time. And he says, we just need one good trail going up and down Sierra. We don't need 3 or 4.
There's a Class 3 bike trail on one side, a Class 1 bike trail on the other side, and there's a walking path on one side, and then there's some drainage basins, and it's like...
So those parking spots also include ones that the neighborhood people are going to need. So it's really, really a kind of an in-your-face, we're going to do it anyway deal. It makes no sense to do that to the public. I mean, the public wasn't asking for those bike trails. The bike association said we don't need them. The church said, hey, we need them. The public said we need them for our houses, and then they're going to do it anyway.
Well, it was the Class 3 bike trail was presented as a linchpin in the bike trails community-wide, because it's going to connect on to the CTC project that's coming past our plant over to Martin Avenue. It's going to connect that trail down to bike trails along Highway 50, that's behind, it's, you know, behind the buildings and heads out towards the Y. So
That's like one bike trail, one walking trail is plenty, not 4.
I don't know why they didn't ask us, Dwayne.
I don't know.
And then looking to the future, we have a TRCD board meeting presentation on June 12th. You going to be there this time? Okay, great. Just again on district and what the future holds. And then got an email from Cindy Gustafson, who's now working. She's the executive officer for the Go Tahoe North tourist agency, is what I'll call them. And we got an invitation that on May 24th from 6 to 7:30, Eduardo Garcia, Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia, who's I think chairman of the Water Parks and something committee down in Sacramento. He's going to be in Tahoe. He was instrumental in getting Prop 68 on the ballot. They would like a big turnout of interested people. The reception is being hosted. It's hosted at the West Shore Cafe by a couple of the businesses on the North Shore, and so she would like a head count from us of who might be interested in going by May 23rd. You know, just as I guess for planning of the food. So. Think about that and maybe get if you think you might want to go. I'm sure most of the people, a lot of people from around the basin will be there. But the idea is that we want a big turnout. But Prop 68 has a minimum of $27 million in it for the Tahoe Basin for fuels reduction and forest management issues. It also has over $100 million that for groundwater issues that the district can pursue. So they wanted a big turnout to thank Eduardo Garcia for his work on that proposition. And as part of the reason is the folks around the basin are looking for legislators in Sacramento who are willing to champion the environmental issues that's important to the mountain communities in California. So that's the pitch. So let Melanie know. And I think that's it for me.
Okay, thanks. We're going to move on to the staff attorney reports. I think, Nancy, we're going to have you go first, huh?
I think everybody has the tentative recruitment schedule. On the back of it is a list of questions to consider along with the schedule. So what we're looking at is if we have plenty of time. Some of the questions to answer is whether you wanted to do the interviews before the board elections and have that person in place, or basically starting mid-December is what this schedule will come out with. We post the position on July 2nd, give about almost a 6-week application period, and then give the board 4 weeks to screen the applications. Another question there is whether you want an ad hoc committee to actually score each of the applications and then recommend finalists to the full board, or whether every member of the board wants to score. Basically what we do is an objective process of giving scores to each of the applicants, whether there's 10 or 100. So we don't know how many people are going to apply, but so it could be a big job. If you do a good job, it's probably about a half an hour per application to go through and actually screen it and score it. And then based on the numbers, you determine who are the top candidates. And that's kept us out of the discrimination realm all these years. So that's a question whether you want to have an ad hoc committee screen and score all of the applications, or just the full board do that. But I'm allowing on this tentative schedule 4 weeks for screening the applications, and then determining the finalists at the September 20th board meeting. I don't know if that would be in closed session or determining the finalists for interviews.
I would agree with that.
But do it. Right. Okay. That would be my preference too. Because we'll probably have several in-house candidates and. Okay. I'm looking at conducting interviews on Friday, November 2nd. That would be before the election. A Friday would allow people from out of town to spend the weekend here and look at housing and that kind of thing. It's a lot easier for people to take a Friday off. So that was my thinking behind scheduling it on that day. And then there's a pre-employment process. So about a month and a half. I don't know how much notice any candidate from the outside might want to give. Certainly in-house, they'd be available right away, but it depends on how much overlap you really want. That's another decision, is how awkward it might be for a new general manager to be there working side by side with Richard, and who do people go to, and so however you want to run this, I'm here to support you.
Well, first off, Nancy, I think the schedule looks pretty good. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think the timeline's perfect.
I think the timeline, I think it's well thought out, and I appreciate all you did on that. As far as a couple of your questions, I'll just open it up to you guys. What do you think? Are you comfortable with just the executive committee doing the screening and the initial applications, or does everyone want to get involved? I mean, it is pretty important.
I'm willing to put in the time because, all five of us, we might see things differently that the others don't see, and those might be valuable things.
But beware, half an hour per applicant, 100 applicants, right?
Yeah.
Going to be developing the interview questions, and in the past we asked managers for input. I do have the whole file from when we did the recruitment when Richard was the successful candidate, so we do have sample questions and everything to start from. But
I think it's important to have staff's input on that because they know the nuts and bolts of this. I also think it's important that the board has input on that because that's who the general manager works for.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Yeah, if we get 100 of them, that could be a problem, but.
Tahoe City just went through it, they had 35 applicants.
Yeah, I would think 100.
That's exaggerating,
right?
Yeah. I don't think we're going to
We
get
had, 13? 15?
I think it was about 15 last time.
That's doable.
How many? I know it's not the same position. How many applied when Shannon was hired for the assistant GM? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember. We've had way too many recruitments lately. I don't remember.
I don't think.
Usually for the management positions, we don't get as many. I mean, we just got about 50 for the lab tech position, but for management and higher level, we don't get as many.
How many we get for the lab manager position? Comparatively with 50 for the tech, but the lab manager position.
Yeah, we only got about 10, I think. Yeah. But I definitely will need some input or closed session to develop. One of the things we do before we post the job is come up with supplemental questions for them to respond to. That helps you score the applications. So we come up with specific questions of qualities or experience that you want to see in your general manager that we can add to the application, and then those will be the questions that you'll actually score on. It's a very structured format that we have in place. And then we'll also we're working on a brochure, but we'd certainly like board input on that and what your ideal candidate is going to be like. So I don't know if an executive committee might be able to give me some of the input on that, the working part of preparing for the interview, and then the full board can do all the screening. That's another.
I'm kind of leaning that way, you know, just based on what I'm hearing in conversation. I mean, you're not expected to be flooded with this stuff. I guess it's possible you could come to us and say, my gosh, we really did get 100 applications. And then at that point, we could decide to have a subcommittee to look at it.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all sounds good.
Let's see. And then the scope of advertising.
Yeah, we discussed that kind of the last time we discussed this, didn't we? You had some avenues you had in mind, right?
The scope of advertising, yeah. There's Aqua, AWWA, Brown and Caldwell, California Special Districts Association, CSDA, CWEA, Water Environment Federation.
Don't forget Craigslist.
No.
I just saw that at the city.
Yeah,
The city was looking for a manager on
Well, I was thinking for independent, for instance, Paul Sciutto had his own business in the past. And so are there engineering firms that we could approach?
That's what Brown and Caldwell
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And then we would be mailing brochures to all the members of CASA. So they actually send us mailing labels.
Okay.
I think it's good.
And then it just by posting it, we have an online application program, and so it posts to governmentjobs.com, and so anybody from the public, anybody can find that just by going to governmentjobs.com.
Well, based on what you said, it sounds to me like you're casting a pretty broad net. I mean, I don't think we're, you know.
And you're avoiding spending, you know, the $500 to have an ad, and the second one will be
Right, yeah, which I don't know.
one ads and stuff.
Those
so
are
I think,
really, I mean, they're prohibitively expensive, and
Yeah. No, I agree. I like your approach, Nancy.
When it comes to the questions that we might want to ask, I kind of need to see what we're going to ask and then run anything that I might come up with. I doubt if I can come up with any better than what you've already done. But if I had a question or two, I would need it run by legal so that we were asking. You know, or you guys could tell me whether.
yeah, these are not questions that, I don't know, offense, but they're not legal
Yeah, I think
questions.
Nancy's the one on that, doing.
Okay.
Be here.
All right.
ask them what their significant other likes about Tahoe or want. Or are they in favor? You know, it's like.
I'm stating the obvious that I need to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, I mean, it would be questions like, you know, describe your experience leading an organization. I can come up with some sample ones and look at what we did last time and maybe build on those.
No, based
You
on
can
your
send
comment
that
about-
out to all of us. And,
Sure.
You know, and then maybe you can have a subcommittee that would.
And I do think we need to put that on agenda and talk about it as a board too.
Okay.
Based on your comment about the senior staff, are we going to model it? The last time it was done was actually 2 interview panels. One was senior managers from the district with a presentation made to them, and then there was the panel.
Right, it was actually a staff panel that included not only senior managers, but some supervisors, some key supervisors, and they did a presentation and a short interview with staff, and then the executive interview with the board with an outside HR person to make sure you guys stay legal, and so that it's not me sitting on the
Within the
board,
rails, right.
board panel, and then I would come and
You know, she looked at me when she said that.
I would
You notice that?
I would come and share with the
I did, I
board
noticed.
what the staff panel came up with. So that was how we bridged those two together. And then
Did you like that
Yeah.
2-board system?
I thought it worked pretty well. We did it off-site.
And even though, I mean, it's kind of interesting though, your board, you got an in-house staff board, but yet there are people that are applying for that position that they know very well and work with. And then you also have outside people. It's kind of a...
When I was doing came in number 2 for the recruitment for the chamber in Reno, and they had a sort of a an event where the top 5 people were there and they got to walk around and talk to you and all those kind of things. So something, I don't know how we do it, but something sort of informal where you get a feel of a person's personality when they're not in front of
That gets into scary territory in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
liked it though.
I believe, I'm
Well,
sure,
a
but
chamber's under a different set of rules.
you can't control what people are going to ask or say, and
Yeah, that's true.
I want to keep us legal.
It's one of the important things
I've
is
had
you
a good
ask,
track record.
is you ask all the same questions. You ask every candidate the same questions, you know.
I know.
We had one age discrimination claim back in 1992, and we submitted 2 boxes full of documentation, and we won. We didn't have any. We were decided not that there was no discrimination, but we've kept it that way all these years, and I don't want to mess up my track record. So.
Well, I'm fine with messing it up. That's all right.
But what I can do
I
is
understand.
I can give you some sample questions and do that through email.
And I would like to, once we have the sample questions and maybe a pool of things that we're looking at, I would like to discuss those at the board level.
Right. We can do it next closed session at the next
Right.
board meeting.
Brochures, too.
Right.
Sample brochures, yeah.
We thought about somebody from outside, like the city or another utility district, sitting in on this.
Right. That's what I'm thinking about.
She's talking about an HR person, kind of the referee.
Oh,
Well, an HR person, but you might also want to have an outside person like the general manager at North Tahoe or wherever as just an outside panelist, because our policy has always been that everybody that is in-house that applies for a position automatically is granted an interview. So that it depends on how many in-house people apply, but that will add to your day.
This outside person, would that be on the
On the executive board.
at the executive board?
Right.
Right, not at the staff level.
Right.
Okay.
That's up to you, though, whether you want both an HR and a outside GM.
Didn't Shannon work with Tahoe City on their selection?
I don't know.
I think he was on part of the, because they had a multi-step process. He was on one of the panels, but I couldn't tell you whether it was on the panel with their board or not.
I've done a lot of that for some reason for El Dorado County, like for the CAO, one of their multiple CAOs, and the county council, those kinds of things. They just bring in an outside person. We have a few in town that I think are very good.
So I think let's kind of move down that
Sounds
line
good.
with the 2 panels, and I don't have a problem with an outside professional person that might give us some technical insight.
Okay. We can work on that. I can get some ideas from you as to outside people, but that's kind of, it's premature for all of that, seeing as how we're not interviewing till November. So we'll work on it one step at a time. As far as the beginning steps is supplemental questions in the brochure, get those ready to go, and then we'll move on to the interview questions, and then getting the outside panelists at that time. So, okay. I'll be feeding you emails. Thank you.
I just have one thing I forgot to mention under public outreach. I think there was some comments made. We did get in the Tahoe Mountain News the notice that we received, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Management and Reporting, and also the Transparency Award from CSDA. They appeared in the Tahoe Mountain News.
I saw that. That was very nice.
I think it's good that you're doing, you're getting the word out.
Hey, you feed that to Taylor?
Yeah, just to add on that, Lake Tahoe News also covered an article on the financial award. Our transparency award got 4th round. It was in Lake Tahoe.
I think I think it was on South Tahoe now also.
Yes, that's how that.
Yeah.
Transparency, the timing of that was interesting. I'm out in the community a lot. Issues, I was out to lunch with a colleague with close friend where I'm, and the timing of that's
It was actually even better than that. There was a negative article on the city. The next article was about our transparency award, and the next article was a negative article on the city. It was perfectly framed.
Yeah, and one of the members of the public at the Wendy David's talk commented to me about our transparency award, that they had noticed the ad in the paper. It goes, oh, great, you know. So.
Richard, with the DVR ribbon cutting that we're organizing in August, I don't know when we bring that to the board for talk of how they want to involve in that.
Why don't you mention right now?
Yeah, so on August 22nd, we're doing an event down in Alpine County at the Diamond Valley Ranch, commissioning of our hydroelectric facility. It's also our 50th year of the recycled water export line. So trying to just kind of celebrate those achievements, we're planning on having a plaque that we're going to put in the hydroelectric building. And so you'll all be invited, but the thought was to have you guys be involved in the plaque unveiling. And so I'm working on the agenda for that, and I have, I think it's 5 minutes scheduled for a plaque unveiling, and I currently have penciled in Randy's name of board president to, I was thinking all of you could be up there, but to say a few words, but that is very much up to you as the board, how much you want to be involved in that plaque unveiling or not. And if you're available on August 22nd from 10 to 11:30. So this is more just letting you chew on it, and at the next board meeting we can talk about it a little bit as well. We're hoping to get an invite sent out probably right after the next board meeting. So you guys kind of think about it, we'll bring it up at that time so that I can finalize whose name should be on the agenda or no name on the agenda, and get those invites out to all of our other parties.
And this is the day after the Tahoe Summit, so we're hoping that there might be some people still in town, or if we just get the local staff of some of our congressmen and representatives in Sacramento, at least give them an invite. And this Tom McClintock and the staff were critical in getting that project launched and getting our Army Corps of Engineers permit. And then the day before the summit, there's going to be more of a Tahoe Basin, fire partnership kind of event, inviting people, and that planning is moving forward for the day before the summit.
All right. Yeah, just keep us up to date. Just tell me where I got to show up and when, and I'll be there.
But like all of you are invited.
Well, I think we should all go. End of story.
So there you go. That's it.
There you go.
Any other staff reports? Gary, do you have anything for us?
Oh. Thank you. So obviously you know that you provided staff direction to notify Liberty that we want to get out of the street.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite subjects.
They finally did contact us back. We did have a sit-down meeting with them as well as a representative of the city last Friday. I think the meeting was productive. They fully understand why we're looking to get out of the billing business for streetlights, and they fully understand that is the direction that we're going in. We talked a little bit about the transition and who would potentially take on the duty, and I think the meeting ended probably with the greatest thought that the city would be taking on paying Liberty for the electric services to have the lights on. And whether they choose as an agency to bill specific customers for those services or not would be up to them. They discussed that maybe they would just absorb the cost, but obviously they couldn't answer right there in the meeting. So we scheduled another meeting towards the end of May to give the city some time to mull it over with their other staff as well as their council. So we'll give you a heads up after that meeting takes place. And one other thing real quick. Next week for 2 days I'll be in Sacramento for the special districts legislative days, which is their legislative conference, and it's when we get time to go across the street and get some FaceTime with our representatives or their staff there. And the reason I bring it up is because one of the main topics we'll be discussing with them is what I brought up here a couple of weeks ago, which is the proposed legislation out there to revive redevelopment agencies. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Okay, very good. I'm glad to see this lighting thing is moving in the right direction.
Oh, just real quick, yeah, because in the letter we sent them, sorry, Gary, we gave them a deadline of June 30th, but we told them in the meeting last week that as long as there's progress being made in the transition, that you know, we can extend that deadline.
I like that approach. You basically say we're done, and that's good.
And Liberty did admit that it was totally their fault that they sent out the word. They had ill-trained people in their office, and they sent out the word that call a city or call the district if the light's out. That it's really their responsibility, and I made sure that they had, you know, that. And then
Like
you
that
told
guy
us.
in Hawaii.
Yeah, and that the city understood that, you know, we were doing this as a favor, and we're getting bad press that you guys gave us the specific direction that we don't need to be doing favors for people and getting mud on our face and threatened with lawsuits and everything else, you know, over this gratis service we're basically providing people. So yeah, they got the message.
We don't make a dime on it, do we, really?
No, it's basically a wash.
Well, so isn't it
Why would
plus
you
a
say
couple $100 a quarter?
Basically a wash.
Yeah.
Why would the city want it to?
No, Jim Marino's comment was that he figures that the city council would be sensitive to members of the public who wouldn't want the light on their streets suddenly to go dark. That they've been counting on the street light for decades, and all of a sudden the lights are going to go out. And the city's, he didn't think that the city had a mechanism for billing individual property owners. They don't send bills to individual property owners, so that he's afraid the city council will just take on the $22,000 a year expense and just pay it out of their general fund and keep the lights on.
Cheaper than developing a building system.
Yeah, but that's what Liberty said, is they don't have a tariff to bill individual people for a street light that lights the street. You can buy a light from Liberty and pay by kilowatt hour if the light is turned around and shines on your property from the telephone pole, and they actually have some of those that individual people pay.
The rates are dependent on the number of front feet of your property.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's looking at it a little different. And the city wasn't in existence when the whole thing was put together, so utility district was the only thing that it could go to, only an entity.
And nobody, you know, LAFCO wasn't able to come up with any kind of a contract or commitment or requirement or anything. That's what we took a long time to make sure that, because that was Liberty's attorney's first response is, oh, it's the district's LAFCO responsibility, and LAFCO said, no, it isn't. You have the ability to bill. You have in your administrative code, that's it. Not an obligation to provide the service.
Tahoe, our city has grant funds through the district through the integrated regional water management grant that was received to do water conservation. So there are people in the city who said, maybe you want to use these grant funds to do irrigation efficiency things, help where you have issues in your landscape. These grant dollars to help you out. And at that meeting, I reshared the letter from Richard and Tim with the spreadsheet identifying cost savings if the city capped water meters that there's no water going through, or downsize meters at the fire stations to their head of facilities. And again, just another opportunity to share potential cost savings with a different person in the organization that it might impact their budget and they might be interested in.
It's good you did that, because the problem is the people we keep sending the letters to keep leaving. So it's good that
Kiss it death.
it's good that you did that.
Living in a little farther,
Right.
it might impact their budget. So again, and that was a feel-good meeting with the city where we were saying, we have almost $70,000 to give you to help improve your irrigation equipment, to help you save water and save money. And while I'm at it, here's another way you could save money. So we'll see.
Well, Gary, finally.
Real slow.
Just a couple quick things. We reported, I think, the last board meeting, we had requested extensions from the State Water Resource Control Board to look at the district's surface water right, both permits and applications. We submitted a letter to them for that purpose. They have now confirmed that they have granted the district a 6-month extension for both the applications and the permits, which will give us some time to first complete gathering all the information that we don't have yet. We're still looking at some things, and the state board is helping us with that process. And then we'll put together an analysis of the water rights, and then at some point here we'll bring this to the board after we work through with staff at developing what the district has and what some of the options are. So that'll be coming down the road. It's probably still a couple months away before we can get our hands around most of this information. Second, if you recall, last meeting, Shannon and Evo were over at a meeting with the regional board, meeting with region board staff, with both Lucan's and Tahoe Keys staff regarding the amended work plan by the responsible parties. Unfortunately, both of them are not here today. Richard and I were able to join maybe for the last 45 minutes to an hour of that conversation. At least from my perspective, it seemed like the conversation was going fairly well when we came in, as far as providing input to the state board, what folks, the water purveyors, would like to have happen. The state or the regional board had indicated that they're sort of okay with the amended work plan, which kind of surprised everybody. And I think that was driven home that the water purveyors were not happy with it, and it shouldn't go forward as currently presented. So what the regional board had discussed at that meeting was having the water purveyors present conditions to the regional board, and the idea would be the regional board would approve the work plan with conditions attached. There was a fairly lengthy list of conditions that were submitted. They were developed by the water purveyors for regional board consideration. Haven't had a chance to talk to Evo, but I'd like to have him follow up with the other water purveyors and the regional board to make sure that those conditions actually get attached to that work plan, because I think it will accomplish what we want to have happen. That's the first and foremost, is to characterize the plume that's really never been done, and certain other tasks that need to be done. But we're hopeful that gets accomplished. But they're I didn't hear it directly, but what I understand, there was a lot of distrust expressed in that meeting based on prior regional board actions or lack of action, and because there was a statement apparently made, the regional board wanted the purveyors to trust them, and that kind of blew up things early in the meeting, and had a pretty frank discussion apparently about why the purveyors weren't looking to trust the regional board and felt the need to be more actively involved. And so hopefully that will garner some traction with the regional board to make them have a little bit more of a spine than they've had in the past. So hopefully, well, like I said, we're going to follow up and make sure we can, to the extent we can, get these conditions built into their approval of the amended work plan. Richard, do you have?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is we know they got it because they responded by email saying thank you for all this input, and we'll take it and use it. And there was no promise that it was going to be included in the conditions or attached to the revised work plan, but they acknowledged they received it, so they can't say, well, what comments? We can get, so we have it in writing that they got it.
Good.
One more thing.
That's it.
Okay. I think that's it for staff reports. You can take a look at the past and future meetings. We do have a couple of closed session things to take care of. So at this time, we'll move out of...
I got one more
Oh,
thing, just quick.
sorry.
I forgot to do this earlier. There's several things that the state, mostly through Department of Water Resources, trying to do to actually may result in some taxes to generate some money. And if you're interested, there's a web page that you can go to and give you more information on what they're doing to fight it.
It's one of the propositions that
No,
through
it's
this-
Department of Water Resources
right.
wants to raise some money, and they want to go through the utility districts, and Aqua is in the middle of fighting that one.
Okay, so let's move into closed session. Hey, John.
Jim,
In session, we are reporting that we adopted a legal budget for existing litigation.